It is funny how we fear death and cherish life, isn't it? Life, which we say is cruel, unfair, and full of pain, and death, which we say treats the poorest of men the same as a king. Does not death mark the end of our suffering? Does not death let us rest in peace? Life is the one who will never love you, throwing you off without a second thought. Life is your abuser, but death will keep you forever. Here, let me introduce you.
Chapter 3. How many of the little bastards did you say? The well-dressed fat man drunkenly asked, as he and the shorter, much thinner man stumbled their way down the dark back alley of Lowtown, as music from the tavern grew fainter and fainter. Turning to face the wall on his right, the fat man opened his trousers and started to relieve himself. 20, and 2 of them were lordlings, Mr. Boya, the shorter man said as he began to piss on the wall next to Mr. Boya. They said it took one of the magus less than a moment to counter the spell. Before that, 20 of them had killed each other. Ha, ha, I bet those fucking magus were shitting themselves. I wish I could have seen it. Mr. Boya laughed as the smell of urine mixed with that of strong spirits. Either way, the nobles are going to be in an uproar over this turn of events. Any idea who might have cast the spell? I would love to pay them for their troubles. He then turned and wiped his hands off on the coat of the other man. The man looked down and frowned. No, Mr. Boya, they have no clue who cast the spells, but they think it might have something to do with the recent murders. The 2 men started to move back down the alleyway. That would make it 5 lordlings killed so far. Could be, but if that is the case, this might be a good opportunity for us to expand our operations, Mr. Boya said, as he placed the bottle to his lips and took a long drink. How so, Mr. Boya? The much smaller man asked, his voice a bit wheezy. Would it not be harder to nab them now that the sentinels will be on high alert? Not at all, Worm. Mr. Boya threw the empty bottle against the wall, shattering it. The sentinels are going to be focused on lordlings, not low-born children. With 5 of them dead now, the nobles will want the Empire to focus all the sentinels on finding the killer of their precious little brats. They will not have time to look into a few lowborns that come up missing, and even if they do, it will just be marked up to the killer. That's a great idea, Mr. Boya, Worm said. It's not my idea, just what my competitors will be thinking. Mr. Boya began to cough and wheeze. Where in the pits of damnation is that man? He said to meet us here so we could arrange the next shipment. The damn cargo is not going to hold for much longer. Are you sure this is where we were to meet, Mr. Boya? Worm asked, looking up and down the alleyway. Maybe he is just running late. Have you ever known a magus to be late, Worm? The sound of a single note being plucked, an A minor, caused both men to turn and look behind them. Did you hear that, Mr. Boya? Worm pulled out his dagger from under his ratty old tunic, his eyes darting back and forth. Mr. Boya? Worm turned and looked back up at his boss as the thin, silvery tip of a blade jetted out from the portly man's throat, then pulled back into the darkness. Shit! Worm screamed as Mr. Boya's corpse slumped forward and splashed into a puddle, the scarlet red of his blood blending into the water. Shit! 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 Still holding his blade, Worm turned and looked back into the shadows. You killed Mr. Boya, you bastard, like a coward in the dark. Why don't you come out and I'll give you a fight? Worm swung his blade into the darkness, but met nothing but empty air. Worm, a smooth voice whispered into his ear from the darkness behind him. What do you want from me? Worm nervously swallowed as sweat began to accumulate on his forehead. Turning, he plunged his blade forward, but once again met only the resistance of empty air. I am not afraid of you. You're a shit liar, Worm. The voice whispered again. Tell me, Worm, if I cut you into pieces, would there be more of you? Worm listened as he spotted a figure hunched over in the darkness. Now I got you. he said, lunging forward and driving his blade into something soft. He smiled as he heard the ripping of fabric, but was shocked to find only a burlap sack. "Now I got you," the voice said in a mocking tone. "You almost had me, Worm. Sadly, our little game must come to an end." "Look, I can pay you," Worm began to beg. "Name your price. I am good for it. Ask anyone." "Are you sure about that?" the voice whispered coldly, as a breeze from the river blew down the alley, making a whistling sound. "Name it. If I have it, I will give it, and if not, I can get it," Worm said as he started to back out of the alley toward its entrance. "You have a deal, Worm," the voice said with finality, as a gleam of moonlight flashed off the blade passing through Worm's wrist. Worm's screams of pain echoed down the alleyway as his severed hand and the blade fell to the ground. "You took my hand. Oh, Onan, you took my fucking hand." "You asked me for my price," the voice said. "I wanted your hand. Now run along and get that tended to before you bleed out." Turning, Worm took hold of his severed stump where his hand once was. Bleeding, he fled from the alleyway and back to the main streets of Potencia's low town. Thomas gingerly eased his sword back into its hidden sheath and watched Worm stumble into the streets. "Hopefully that will send a message to our snatchers and give the lowborn children a chance," he thought as he knelt and began turning out the late Mr. Boya's pockets. Snatchers had become a real problem since last spring for the lowborn families of Potencia. What would become of them? Few dared to speak out, but truly everyone knew. Many of the wealthy and powerful had tastes that could not be satiated within the walls of a pleasure house. Thomas wished that there was something more he could do. That is why he was always eager to take on marks like these, even if it was to tie up loose ends for a sponsor. "There we are," Thomas said to the dead man as he placed his coin purse into his bag. "Thank you for the tip, Mr. Boya." Standing, Thomas made his way out of the alley and back onto the main street. He tipped his hat to a passing couple. "A song for the happy couple," he said, reaching for his lute. "No thank you, Sir Bard." The couple smiled as Thomas played a few notes of petals in her hair. "Well, have a lovely night," Thomas said, turning and continuing to play the song as he walked down the street. The night itself was a bit somber. Few people had made their way to Lowtown in light of the events at the academy the day prior. The attack had been sloppy, but efficient. If Magus Oben had not countered the spell when he did, more than 20 lives would have been lost. "Sir Bard!" an eerie voice called out, making Thomas's skin crawl and causing him to stop. "I'd like to hear a story. Do you have one to tell?" Turning his head, Thomas looked to his right, only to see a large grey cat perched on the smooth white stone of a short wall. "Did you say something?" he asked, puzzled by where the voice came from. "That I did, Thomas," the large cat said, in a tone that hinted at violence, digging its claws into the stone. "My master would like to be informed of your progress." "Oh boy." It had been a long time since Thomas came face to face with a Grimalkin. Their voices always left him feeling nervous. Magi would sometimes make deals with them, and in turn, the Grimalkin would take on the role of a familiar. However, it was a gamble. Many Magi had been found with their bellies laid open and their innards sprawled across the room after dealing with them. "Do I make you nervous, Thomas?" The Grimalkin smiled, making Thomas feel less at ease. "Not at all." Thomas tipped his hat and smiled back at the creature. "I played a little lullaby for Mr. Boya, and now he rests well." "Good, my master will be pleased." The Grimalkin then dragged its claws against the stone, making deep scores into it. "Please tell me he suffered and moaned," it said in a savage tone, while gazing upon Thomas. Licking his lips and then swallowing deeply, Thomas looked into the creature's eyes boldly. I do not recall that being part of the agreement. I take it that is your desire, and not your master's. It was important to be very careful when dealing with a grimalkin. One did not show them any form of weakness, or try to mislead them in any way. If Thomas had made Mr. Boya suffer in any way without explicitly being told to do so, the grimalkin would be obliged to deal with Thomas as it saw fit. And what of his companion? It leaned in toward Thomas and smelled his nose. Did you sing him a lullaby? No, I did not. I did not have a mark for him. Thomas stood very still, but the smell of a rotting corpse coming from the grimalkin's breath made him feel sick. But you did bring your blade down on him. The grimalkin hissed as its body tensed up. Mr. Worm paid for my services, be it with his hand, nevertheless, he did pay. Thomas took in a deep breath. Do you intend to interfere with the contract I hold with someone else? I do not think your master or my own would be pleased to know that. The grimalkin leaned back from Thomas and returned to its perched position. My master has a new task and mark for you. I thought that was the end of our agreement, Thomas said, his voice filled with surprise. Your contract with my master is open-ended, Bard. The grimalkin laughed eerily. Did you think you were just going to kill one of his former acquaintances and that would be the end of it? No, Thomas. My master has many more tasks for you before your dealings are done. What is the task, and who is the mark? Thomas lowered his voice to a whisper as two pedestrians walked past, unaware of the potential danger. The grimalkin took its eyes off Thomas for a moment and stared at the two men. Thomas froze in place, not daring to move or even breathe. The creature was ready to pounce and kill, not out of hunger, but for the sheer pleasure of killing. What is your master's task, dutiful servant? Thomas said very carefully, hoping to draw the grimalkin's attention back to its task and away from its unsuspecting prey. Without taking its eyes off the men, it said, You are to eliminate the youngest daughter of House Syncrad and implicate House Lowind in the deed. It growled, I see. Thomas let out a sorrowful sigh. And when does this task need to be completed? It will take time to carry out such an undertaking. I would also like to meet directly with your master in time, so that he and I can make appropriate arrangements. You have until the start of next summer. The grimalkin crouched and slowly made its way along the wall, its ears folded back onto its head. And he will meet with you when he sees fit. Do not ask again. Then, without another word, the grimalkin leapt off into the shadows and out of Thomas's sight as it rushed out for the kill. Breathing out a sigh of relief, Thomas turned back around and began walking down the cobblestone streets. This is going too far. I have to find a way to back out of this contract, he said to himself. Thomas reached for his sword and suddenly turned around, facing the direction the evil creature had gone, as the screams of the dying echoed up and down the streets of Lowtown. On the other hand, that might be a bad idea.
Lalana walked slowly down the long hallway, the click of her shoes echoing against the granite stone with each step. She smiled warmly as she inhaled the scent of the air, reminiscent of a freshly opened book. However, her smile quickly faded as she recalled the tragic events of 2 days prior. She shivered at the memory of the anger in Elizabeth's eyes. The boy had taken only 3 steps towards Lalana before Elizabeth drew her sword and sliced off his thwart. Lalana had to hold her sister tightly to prevent her from hunting down Leaf and killing him. While Elizabeth was affected by the spell, Lalana remained unaffected, though neither of them fully understood why. "Pardon me," a lovely black-haired girl said, drawing Lalana out of her thoughts. "Do you know where we can find Magus Biggin's lecture room? The 2 of us are a bit lost." The golden-furred dog let out a small bark. "Oh, sorry, cat. I meant to say the three of us." Lalana laughed warmly and smiled. "Yes, I know the way. That's where I'm headed now." "Thank you, Unan," the girl sighed with relief. "May I accompany you?" "Oh, my apologies, I nearly forgot. I'm Lady Mai Feywood, and this is my friend Mouse." The dog barked again, causing both Mai and Lalana to laugh. "Oh, and this is Cat." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Feywood," Lalana said, extending her hand to Mai. "And you as well, Mr. Mouse." She smiled and nodded at the shy boy. "I'm Lady Lalana Syncrad." "The pleasure is mine, Lady Syncrad," Mai replied warmly, shaking Lalana's hand and nodding respectfully. "But please, call me Mai." "Then you should call me Lalana." Lalana smiled just as warmly. "Lady Mai," Mouse said in a shy, timid and squeaky voice, "shouldn't we be on our way to the lecture?" Mai turned to face Mouse and smiled. "Mouse, please stop calling me Lady Mai. We are friends, silly, and my friends don't call me Lady." Mouse's cheeks and ears turned a bright red as his eyes met with Lalana's and Mai's. "Oh, sorry, Mai, and it is a pleasure to meet you as well, Lady Lalana." The two girls giggled. "Don't mind Mouse, it took him all day to say hello to me the first day we met." Lalana tilted her head slightly, then smiled at Mouse. "It's quite all right," her own voice a bit shy. "But he is right. We should really get to the lecture." "Indeed we should," Mai said as she and Lalana began walking down the hall, followed by Mouse and Cat. "So, are you studying to become a magus like your father?" "Yeah, I am," Lalana said as she looked to Mai. "Oh, I meant that I am." Mai giggled warmly. "You don't have to be so formal, Lalana. We are at the academy, here to find out who we are, so let's just be ourselves." "Okay, what about you?" Lalana asked, starting to feel more relaxed. "Are you here to become a magus as well?" "Sadly, no, I'm not." Mai let out a long sigh. "I was not born with the feel for the shift, so I am here to study diplomacy so that one day I can become an ambassador. At least that is what my mother, Lady Feywood, would like." "Oh, I see." Lalana turned her head and looked back to Mouse, causing him to blush again. "What about you, Mr. Mouse? Are you studying to become a magus?" No, Lady Lalana." His timid nature was on full display. "No, I don't have the feel for the shift either. So, I am studying to become a scholar." Lalana then stopped suddenly as the light tingling sensation of the shift washed over her just outside the door to the lecture hall. The three of them jumped in surprise as the door flew open with a loud thud, slamming against the outer wall. A stream of brightly coloured bubbles flowed out of the room and into the hallway, making them smile. Magus Baigan, a funny-looking man dressed in colourful robes and with a smile that Lalana had always been quite fond of since she was a young girl of 7 Springs, stood there. She had met him many times on her trips to Potentia with her father. "Lady Lalana, I was hoping you would be part of my lecture," Magus Baigan said in his most joyful tone. "Oh, and I see you brought friends." Magus Baigan was not like other magi, choosing to wear robes of many colours, unlike others who chose to wear the formal robes of red and black. Lord Magus Syncrad did not approve of Magus Baigan, calling him a jester and not a true magus. Nevertheless, Lalana adored this man. He was the closest thing she had to a grandfather. "Well, don't just stand there," Magus Baigan boomed with excitement. "Hurry, hurry, we have much to learn." Magus Baigan, is it okay if Cat joins us?" Mouse asked kindly. "I promise she will not disturb the lecture." Lalana smiled deeply as Magus Baigan gave her and Mai a mischievous wink. By Ornan no, cats make me sneeze whenever I am around them. Magus Began leaned down, looking Mouse right in his ghostly grey eyes. Don't tell me you brought one of the little monsters, Mr. Mouse. No, Magus. Mouse flinched. Cat is a dog. Well, you had better bring her inside, the colourful man smiled. She'll keep away the cats. Lalana then followed behind Mouse, Cat and Mai as they made their way into the lecture room. The smell of sweet cakes accompanied by warm laughter made her feel excited and ready to learn. She could no longer think of the lives lost on the tragic first day, even if she tried. Every time she thought of it, the memory would slip away like a wet bar of soap. It is a dream day enchantment, Mouse whispered to her as she and Mai sat down on the soft, pillowy chairs. What do you mean, Mouse? Mai asked as she made herself comfortable. It is an enchantment that is meant to keep people from thinking of painful thoughts, Lady Mai, he said, as Cat lay down on the floor next to him. That is why everyone is so happy. I thought you couldn't feel the shift, Mr. Mouse. Lalana looked at him, confused. No, I can't feel it. A look of embarrassment in his eyes. I just noticed that... All right, pupils, Magus Biggin interrupted as he addressed the room. I hope everyone is comfortable. I would like to start the day by asking each of you a very simple question. What is magic? Lalana, along with the rest of the room, looked at Magus Biggin, a look of deep thought on each of their faces. A boy with bright red hair and a plump belly quickly raised his hand. Magus Began. Ah yes, Master Kenethor. Magus Began faced the boy. Can you tell me what magic is? If you can, there is a prize in it for you. Well, Magus, Kenethor said happily, magic is, life. It's the air that we breathe, the smell of fresh bread, and the birth of a new day. Very poetic, Master Kenethor. No doubt your mother had some influence on your impression of magic. He smiled brightly at the boy. But sadly, you're incorrect. Lady Mai. Magus Biggin pointed to her as she raised her hand. Can you tell us what is magic? Well, Magus Biggin, Mai said proudly as she stood up. Magic is power, and the will to use it. Very ambitious and bold, Lady Mai. Thinking like that can take you very far in the halls of Montos, Magus Began said, still smiling. Clearly your mother had an influence on you as well, but sadly, you're incorrect. Mai frowned, then returned to her seat and looked at Lalana. Well, at least I tried. Lalana smiled at Mai. I thought your answer was good, Mai. Lady Lalana. Magus Began looked at her and pointed his finger. Surely you can answer my question. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Lalana slowly rose to her feet. Yes, Magus Biggin, she said nervously, as the whole room turned to look at her. Magic is the energy flow that a magus harnesses to structure spells by moving and or manipulating the fundamental elements of the environment. That is a very good answer, Lady Lalana. Magus Began smiled proudly at her. That must be the most logical and formal answer any student has given me. It is clear to me that you will become a great magus in the future. I, for one, cannot wait to see that day, but I'm sorry to say you are incorrect as well. Lalana, feeling a bit disappointed, let out a sigh and then returned to her seat. She looked to Mai and smiled. Well, at least we tried, she said, putting emphasis on the word we, causing Mai to giggle. Lalana watched and listened as each student raised their hand and gave their answers. The answers ranged from ambitious and bold to as logical as her own. Some were even a bit silly. However, no one could provide an answer to the seemingly simple question. Come now, can't anyone amongst you answer the question? Magus Bigan smiled mischievously. It's a very simple question, is it not? Mr. Mouse, you have been very quiet this whole time. I nearly forgot you were here. Magus Began, along with the rest of the room, looked at the shy boy, causing him to jump in his seat. Everyone, even Lalana, snickered at Mouse's reaction to being called upon. Mouse stood from his seat slowly, then looked at the door of the room as if he was about to flee in terror. I'm sorry to say, Magus, but I can't tell you what magic is." His words were as humble as his clothing. "Oh, that can't be true, young novice," Magus Began said. "You're a very bright young man, and it is a very simple question." "But Magus, it's not a simple question." Mouse looked up to him. "In fact, it is an impossible question to answer, one that you yourself can't answer." "How so?" Magus Began's eyes narrowed as his tone changed from joyful to slight confusion. "Well, Magus, while I can't tell you what magic is," Mouse explained, "I can tell you why the question is impossible to answer. Magic exists both as a theory and as a fact. However, whenever any magus or scholar attempts to study or observe magic, their findings are always different. The act of merely observing it changes its outcome and shapes it into whatever the observer hopes to find. It's as if you found a box and expected to find a bird inside, then you would find a bird. However, if I later found the box and expected to find a spoon inside, then I would find a spoon. But that too is not the answer to the question. It is only an explanation as to why there is no answer." Lalana looked at Magus Began, then back at Mouse as the whole room fell silent. Magus Began stared at Mouse with a look of confused wonder. "That is not possible," Magus Began said softly, still confused. How did you know that, Mouse? There must be a mistake. My documents said you were not magically inclined." "No, Magus, there is no mistake," Mouse started to shake. "But may I be excused?" Yes, of course," Magus Began said as he carefully sat down in his seat. Lalana watched as Mouse picked up his belongings, but not before taking one last shy look at her. She gave him a warm and caring smile as he turned and quietly rushed out the door, followed by his ever-faithful companion cat. "Is he going to be all right, Mai?" Lalana asked, turning back to Mai. "Yeah, he should be fine," Mai answered as she looked back at Lalana. "I don't think he likes it when everyone is focused on him. I have only known him for 2 days now. He is smart and very kind, but I think people scare him." "Should we go after him?" Lalana said, feeling a bit concerned. "No, I don't think so." A look of concern now appeared on Mai's face as well. "He'll find his way back when he is ready." "Magus Began, is there anything else we are going to go over?" Kenethor asked, breaking the deafening silence of the room. "No, that will be all for today," Magus Began said as his attention was drawn back to the other students. "Class is dismissed for the day. I will see each of you back here tomorrow." Lalana and Mai both gathered their belongings and started to walk towards the door. "Mai, can you give me just a moment? I want to ask Magus Began something." "Sure, I'll wait in the hallway for you if you like." Mai nodded, then walked out the door. "Magus Began, is everything okay?" Lalana asked as she approached the weary man. "Oh yes, Lady Lalana, everything is fine." He smiled at her. "I was just taken by surprise. I never expected a young novice to give me such an answer." "So he was correct?" Lalana asked. Little Lalana. His warm smile returned. "The best answer anyone, Magi included, has ever given to that question is, we don't know. Not even your father could tell you that, but your young friend just told me, and the rest of the room, one of the most complex reasonings for understanding magic that the Order of the Eye has been theorizing for the last 200 years. I even think he may have dumbed down his answer so that we could understand what he was saying." Lalana's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes, how long have you known him?" Magus Began asked. Oh, I only just met him this morning, Lalana said. I helped him and Lady Mai find your lecture room. I see. Magus Began started to rub the ends of his salt and pepper beard. Lalana, as a favour to me, I would like you to become closer friends with Mr. Mouse and Mai. I feel as if you could be a great influence on our young, shy friend. Lalana smiled deeply. That is a great idea, Magus Began, she said, her tone full of bubbly joy. Good, now run along. Magus Began placed his hand on Lalana's back and gently turned her towards the door. Also, please keep what I told you about the eye between the two of us. It would cause problems for the young man, and we don't want that. I promise, Magus Began. Lalana turned and gave the man a hug, then headed out of the lecture room. Magus Began, now standing alone in the room, rubbed his nose. That was very unexpected. I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting season.